This is Corey Willis with PPEI, and you're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
I'm Adam Blattenberg from Diesel World.
This is Dan, owner of Dan's Diesel Performance.
I'm Kaz from Diesel Doctor of Tennessee, and you're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
What is going on, Diesel Nation? We're excited to have you guys with us today. We're going to be chatting with Mark from Deputy Diesel in Canada today, and he's going to be talking to us about taking one of his trucks to Alligator Performance's Hunting for Horsepower event that just happened. And this truck's a really cool build. It's a 6.7 liter Cummins. It started out with a 68 RFE, and he did a complete swap to a G-56. So he basically made it as factory as it could be for how he uses the truck and what he wanted from a manual transmission versus an automatic. And we're also going to get into the engine a little bit and talk about what kind of turbo he went with, injectors, injection pump, and how that compares to what his customers are asking him for on a daily basis and how people are using their trucks. So we're really looking forward to be able to chat with him today. Before we get to it, though, we want to encourage you guys and thank you guys as well for all the iTunes reviews that you guys have been giving us. They help us tremendously. When you guys go on there, just search the Diesel Podcast, leave us a review, and then let us know either a topic that you'd like us to cover or a particular guest you would like on the podcast. Those really help us be able to know what you guys want to hear and be able to bring you those episodes. All right, let's get to the podcast with Mark and talking about his truck and hunting for horsepower. Mark, welcome to the Diesel Podcast. I'm excited to chat with you today. We saw your truck at the BD Diesel Dirt Drags and then also hunting for horsepower, and I've definitely heard of your company before in the diesel industry, but it's fantastic to be able to chat with you today about a lot of cool things that you guys are doing, with trucks and the events that are out there, and we're really excited to have you on today.
Yeah, no, it's great to be on. I've been listening to the podcast for quite some time. We listen to it in the shop while we're working, and definitely always learning, finding new things to try, checking out what's coming out in the industry. It's pretty great way to keep up to speed on everything and knowing what events are happening, and it's just awesome.
It's one of those things too where, like, when we first started, we're like, okay, what are we going to talk about? We're talking about transmissions and turbos and tuning, and then we quickly realized that there is so much content and so many things pertaining to diesel trucks, each one of the engine platforms themselves, things with shops, business advice, events, all these different things. So it's so cool to be able to chat with all the different parts of the diesel community. And I wanted to start kind of at the beginning, and for our listeners to hear an introduction from you about you, your business, what you guys do, where you're located, just what's your kind of bread and butter, so to speak, with having a diesel shop.
So we're located in Summerland, BC, Canada, which no one's going to know where that is, but we're about 4 hours from Vancouver, and it's kind of just a little small community, but there's a huge market for diesel repair up here. A lot of the other shops, they just won't touch this stuff. So there's a few shops in the area that do diesel repair, and we work together, and it's been phenomenal, and we've met some great people through that. So we kind of bread and butter. It's everything. I would say I generally like doing, with the programming and the turbocharger upgrades and some mild transmission upgrades and stuff like that. But there's still a lot of like keeping the local trucks on the road, doing brakes and ball joints and whatnot. So I originally started in this industry in 2001 at a shop on the coast, and I was going to heavy-duty mechanic school, like a pre-apprenticeship training, and I went to a dyno event at BD Diesel, which was the first time I ever saw like high-performance diesel pickup trucks, and it absolutely blew my mind. I instantly there, I was like 19 or 19 years old, and I was just like, this is the world that I need to be in. This caters to everything that I love. I want to say that the truck that I saw dynoing made like 500 horsepower, and it was breaking the tires loose, and there was people, piling in the back of it trying to get traction, and then I saw under the hood of this Cummins, and it the 6-valve covers, and I was just like, oh my God. And after that, it was my whole mission was like, get a job in this industry and just do awesome turbo diesel stuff all day. So I ended up working at a shop called PDR Diesel under a guy that some of the older listeners may know, Piers Harry, and we were doing a lot of really wild Cummins performance stuff and just a lot of R&D. It was pretty amazing to see, where we started and now where the industry is. It's mind-blowing.
The events, and I think like what you described, like a dyno day, is how a lot of us get hooked. And I know with social media and YouTube and things like that, we can see even more now than from what I remember back in 2001. We're about the same age, and I don't remember too much that I could check out online to see it. So we had to go places. We had to go to the event, and there's a huge drive, I think, from the spectators and the diesel community where they want to get back to that. They want to go see it. They want to walk down vendor row. They want to see the engine stand. And we saw your truck at the BD Diesel Dirt Drags and Hunting for Horsepower. And I wanted to ask you what first of all, which trucks did you take? I know you've got a lot of them. They've got a lot of cool stuff done to them. But then what was kind of the feedback or the recap of Hunting for Horsepower? It seemed huge from what we saw on social media and just people posting about it and videos and things like that.
Yes, we ended up taking 4 of my own personal trucks to each event, I believe. I generally running the Duramax that we call it the race truck, but just because it's not super streetable, you got the stack coming out of the hood and all that kind of stuff, and it's pretty competitive on the dirt. With it doesn't make a horsepower like some of the other guys do, but it's a consistent 700 horsepower truck, and on the dirt, I mean, it just hooks up and goes like stink. And the feedback from the people there is just, I mean, it's so like humbling and overwhelming as people come in and they want to check this thing out and asking what's done to it. It's just great to get involved and talk to the different people about their combinations and kind of what you're running and what works and what you've tried that didn't work. And Hunting for Horsepower, I mean, that was the biggest event that I've ever been to. First time down there, and it was just an eye-opener. It's quite a bit different than the local events that we do. And BD Dirt Drags is an absolute riot. We usually get a pretty good showing from customers and just people who come to the shop and friends and everyone down there. And everyone has a blast, and it's really well organized. And interacting again with the other racers. And the general public is it just makes all those long nights and skipped weekends totally worth it.
Yeah, there seemed to be a huge variety of trucks that were there as well, from whether it's Cummins, Duramax, Power Stroke, just crazy. There was some of the power numbers that they were seeing on the dyno, and then also just really competitive street trucks, something you can have fun with, and still be able to, drive it or take it on a trip, or even like a show and shine, a show vehicle. So it's really cool to see all the different types of trucks that were there. And when we were chatting beforehand, you were telling me about your trucks, and there was one I really wanted to focus on for this episode, which is your 6.7 Cummins. and you've got a lot of cool things done to it. And I wanted our listeners to be able to hear, how you've modified it, the upgrades you've done to it, and what your whole goal with that truck has been through the modification process.
Yeah, so the goal for that was well, it's a mega cab, 6.7 liter. So it was to have like the ultimate tow vehicle. You could throw a bunch of people in it comfortably, hook the trailer to it, go to the events, unhook the trailer, make some power, do some dirt drags. I mean, we did swap it to a G-56, which doesn't make it phenomenal for smashing gears on the dirt with a 300-foot track and a 69 mil charger, but I still, I can grab, a buddy or a customer and say, hey man, here's the keys. Go run this thing down the dirt for the day and have a good time. Don't worry, you won't wreck it. And if you do, I don't know, we'll stick it on the trailer and tow it home with something else. So what I wanted to was to showcase some of the parts that we sell for the 6.7 liter. And we get a lot of, I'm sure like every shop, VGT issues, VGT actuator issues, stuff like that. So having, this BD kit on there that gets rid of those problems and being able to, throw the customer the keys and say, hey, take this thing for a drive, see how you like it. In hindsight, going with a 69 mil probably was not the best example for the regular Joe that comes in here, but it's still a bit of a reference for them. So what we did is it's got 90 horsepower BD injectors in it. They're dual fuel kit. The S369 with the second gen swap, some custom tuning from Mitch Cooper, CCS tuning that you had on a little while ago, and Colt Cam Stage 4 camshaft, diesel tough, common rail heavy duty valve springs, the usuals, ahead studs, fast fuel pump, BD intake plenum with the heater grid delete, the BD air horn, the cold air intake, BD's exhaust brake, traction bars. It's been lowered about 5 inches in the rear and 3 inches in the front. We've got some really awesome EMF ball joints in there, and their steering shaft bushings. It's just makes those Cummins. I'm sure every Cummins owner knows about the front end issues, let's say, and these ball joints are great for curing that, and you're not having to replace them all the time. We did some longer front control arms that are about an inch longer, get the diff a little farther forward. I don't really recall why we ended up doing that, but it worked out really, really well. And getting the caster in the right place, the truck actually handles very well. And then threw some airbags in the rear so we can still throw the trailer on it and load it down and hit the highway.
I was just going to say, with the turbo and the fueling, I know there's going to be probably a lot of listeners out there that are like, I'm looking at this kit, or I'm thinking about that size turbocharger. How does it behave on the street? How quick is the response? Say, as a reference point, they might have a VGT and it's going out, or that's all they can reference. How would you compare the two?
So it's definitely it takes longer to spool. It does like to be over 2,000 RPM. Works really well with the G56. I didn't run it with the 68 in there, so I couldn't give a good baseline of that. But what I was absolutely blown away with was how well it responds and how well it performs. I was expecting this thing to be a really doggy bottom end, and it is totally drivable. It's very, the EGTs are very controllable with that setup, but you got to be comfortable with throwing some RPMs at it. Around here, it's very hilly. Everywhere you're going, you're climbing. So when you get 10,000 pounds on the back of that thing, you know, I'm pulling the hills. I'm up 2,700, 3,500. Sometimes I'll take it a little higher for fun, and that's something that I worked with Mitch a bunch on. Where I think we're rev limiting at about 4,200 RPM on that kind of stock bottom end 6.7. So we'll see how long that lasts for. But it makes for a pretty, with the G56, it makes for a pretty good tow setup. I like to kind of be the first up the hill. So get it into fifth gear and get the RPMs up, and it just really doesn't care what you put in front of it. It climbs. I don't think I would, you know, sell that combo exactly to, you know, just a average Joe that comes in the door. It's a bit too much charger, but they make those iron horn kits with the 363 and the 364.5, and those things just perform amazing on a fairly unmodified pickup compared to the VGT. And the big seller for me is getting rid of that drive pressure, because, you know, shop owners and 6.7 Cummins owners, you know about the drive pressure issues, you know about the head gasket failures. And one of the biggest things that I stress over here is like getting rid of that tiny little VGT. It's a big blocker. The manifold doesn't flow very well. So we went with the T4 BD 3-piece second gen swap. And I mean, I don't have a drive pressure gauge on there, but it definitely flows more air when you look at the manifold side by side.
That's what's so cool about the turbo choices that are out there, is there's something for everyone. So if you do just want something, it flows a little bit more than stock, it kind of operates in that lower RPM range, there's a turbo for you. If you want something that provides a little bit more, you know, air or a lot more air, you have so many choices, and that's what's really cool about like the state of the current, you know, diesel offerings or diesel market, is there's everything out there to meet your specific goals. Now, one of the really cool things when you were telling us about the truck is the G56 swap. And I wanted to ask you, how hard was that to do?
Well, that is that's kind of a loaded question. So for the average Joe, I think it would be a fairly big undertaking. I mean, it was a big undertaking for us at the shop, but I did have a complete donor truck that was in an accident, and we ended up using that. So it got a little out of control. I had it all started, I had this 6.7 liter with the auto in it, and I had kind of a horsepower goal for it, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do that with the 68 for a daily driver and then some drag strip passes from time to time. So I originally said, well, whatever, I'll just push the 68 as far as it can go, and I'll throw this 64.5 mil charger on it, and that'll be it. So we pull it into the shop. I start pulling the turbo off, and then I was like, wow, you know, it's already off. Let's go a little farther. Let's do these injectors. Let's do this. And next thing you know, I've got the cab off, the interior completely stripped out. The whole thing is just nuts and bolts spread all over the place. And then we've got a donor truck that's in the same condition. So we actually went as far as, you know, pulling the dash out, changing all the wiring harnesses, changing all the computers, stripping the wiring harness from under the hood, and just doing, like, literally doing a full everything swap. And I don't know if that's super practical for for the average, weekender and the guy that needs his truck, every day. It's a pretty big undertaking, but in the end, I'm so glad that I did it, because I don't, even though some guys are coming out with awesome 68 RFEs now, I don't know how super confident I would be going and jamming a bunch of power through it and hitting the drag strip. And that G-56 swap, we did the South Bend street dual disc with the traction bars. I mean, I got no problems hooking the trailer to it, backing it into the yard. It's so smooth and so drivable. It was totally worth it on our end. And I know for anyone who's had the frustrations of the 68, I mean, it's kind of a dream come true, but it is a very large undertaking. And the only way I would recommend doing that for somebody is if you have access to the full, spectrum of parts that you'll need, because that one little bracket or that one little whatever you need might be the hardest thing to find.
I think also with the manuals is some people just want it, and they might have gotten the truck with a 68 RFE and, at the time they didn't know, hey, I really want a manual on this thing. But I know that's been a swap that people have done and looked to do for really just either because they like it or the power range that they want to be in and the control that they want. And it took a long time for 68 RFEs to get, to where they're at now. And
yeah,
it's one of those things where people have asked, in podcasts or message in and said, hey, do you know anyone's done the G56 swap? And I've got a 68. So it's really cool to hear how you guys did it, and really the right way, which, like you said, is having everything there that you're going to need. And it's usually the small things, the brackets or an adapter or something like that, to be able to make it work.
Yeah, that's I don't think I would have done it unless I had the access to the full truck, which is something that's, kind of one of those things that shop owners sometimes get over the general public, is the ability to buy that, written off truck, or that truck that's been in an accident, or the one that, popped an engine and guy just wants to unload it. But that is really the only way I would have taken that, because I have done manual swaps in the past and not had that, that little piece that's just frustrating. Although with the modern day of the internet, I mean, you can track most of that stuff down on eBay, or there's a lot of online sellers that have good quality used parts, and that's another way to go. But for me, I just kind of wanted the whole thing there. And you mentioned the 68. It has been a long time for that thing to get to where it is, and there's certainly ways to make it perform better than it has, but especially with a little bit bigger charger and that, it's really nice to have that manual transmission, plus the fun of just grabbing those gears. And I got the exhaust brake on there, and I put that big old red shifter switch knob exhaust brake, and you're just grabbing gears and flipping the switch, and there's air noises going on, and it brings a smile to your face every time you get in it. So
it's a cool factor.
Yeah, the cool factor is there, and you get people hop in it, and you're driving it around, and everyone's smiling, and it's making noise, and you're spinning some RPM, which is always something that brings a smile to my face, and it's pretty fun. Whether there's a benefit to hitting 4,200 on every shift, I don't know, but it sure sounds cool.
Definitely got a lot of cool trucks, and I know on this one we touched a little bit on the Duramax and the Cummins, but for our listeners that are out there, they want to see what you guys are doing, or maybe they have questions for you. Maybe they want to do a G-56 swap, and they do have a donor truck, and they might want to get in touch with you, or maybe they're local and need some maintenance done, or want to do a build or something like that. What is the best way for people to see what you guys are doing and then get in contact with you guys?
So I'm trying to keep up on the social media there, which on Instagram is Deputy Diesel, and Facebook is Deputy Diesel Performance, I believe. And we got some online store stuff. I don't have really a social media feed on that, but it's deputydieselperformance.com. And follow me is Mark Sherriff, SHERRIFF, on Facebook. And I try and do my best to keep on posting some videos and pictures and putting up what events we're heading to, so that locals can swing by and check out some of the trucks. We like to bring a pretty good fleet of stuff down, a pretty broad fleet. We got a couple 6-liters that I'm pretty fired up about taking to shows, and it seems like that there's a special group of people like me that like that 6-liter Power Stroke and like checking it out. So always trying to keep the social media full of everything we're doing, and if there's listeners out there that want to swing by the shop and go for a drive in pick whatever you want that's in the yard, and we can go grab some gears and make some RPM, then that's always something we're open to.
It's always cool to be able to, like, if you have a stock truck and you're thinking about doing something to it, be able to ride in a vehicle that has some of those things done, and just know, like, this is what's going to feel like, this is what it's going to sound like, and it's something that's really valuable, especially for someone that's local, or if they see you at an event or something like that and want to check out a truck. So definitely encourage our listeners to go follow you guys on Instagram and Facebook and get in contact with you, with any questions. And we definitely appreciate, your time today chatting with us, and we want to have you back on to chat about some of the other trucks. You mentioned the 6-liter, the 6.4, go more into the Duramax. So definitely look forward to chatting with you in the future and going more in depth with some of the other trucks that you got and the modifications that you've done to them.
Yeah, that's great. I would definitely be looking forward to coming back and talking about some more of those, or hopefully meeting up with some people at shows and always there. And some of the events are great, like the BD event. You get a customer coming over, wants to talk about it, got some grunge racing after, hop in that front seat, go for a pass down the strip and see what it feels like to be in the passenger seat of a 600 horsepower truck in 4-wheel drive going across the dirt. And it's just a great time for diesel performance right now in some ways, and we're really looking forward to what the future holds, besides some of this EPA stuff that's coming down the pipe.
Yeah, it's definitely something that it's changing, but I think in a good way, as well. With it's almost forcing some advancements, or some technology and skill that people have out there with making power and doing it within the framework of what we have to operate on. But it's cool to see the variety of trucks that you have and the different setups, and so we definitely look forward to chatting with you in the future about them.
All right, thanks a lot for having me.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, make sure and head on over to BD Diesel's website. It's dieselperformance.com. If you have any questions about anything that we talked about on this podcast, they've got a very easy to navigate website, got tons of information, tons of products, and they have some sales going right now as well. And then also give some love and support to Alligator Performance. They do a lot for the diesel community, with events and different things that they put on throughout the year. But they have a whole host of products, whether you're looking for to build a truck like we talked about on this podcast, or maybe you just want to get a little bit more power for your daily driver, your tow truck, work truck, something like that, or you want a full-on race build. They've got it all. Just go to alligatorperformance.com. Till next time, keep the shiny side up.